Hi everyone, it's Samara. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well. Today's video is going to be talking about my current favourite app, Letterboxd. Now, I've been using Letterboxd for quite a few years now, but I've really gotten into it this year, so I thought it would be fun to dissect and explain my Letterboxd top 4. These are the films that are currently my top 4, and now I say currently because your favourite things are always subject to change, so they're currently my top 4, but who knows? I mean, since I've had the app, I have changed my top 4 a few times, so let's see if it changes after I film this video as well. If you don't already know what Letterboxd is, it's an app and website where you can rate and review films and sometimes TV shows or documentaries that you've watched. So as I said, I've been using it for quite a few years. It's been around for a while, but it's gained a lot of traction in recent years. It's gained so much traction in recent years that it's even done, I guess it's like a collaboration sort of thing, to create its own streaming service. So you can rent or download and stream movies direct from Letterboxd through their Letterboxd Pro subscription, I believe it is. I just use Letterboxd, like the free version. I'm not a patron or use Letterboxd Pro, so yeah. Obviously, like I said, you use the app to rate and review movies, but you can also look at other people's rates and reviews, which I really enjoy. I have some of my friends on Letterboxd and I always like seeing what they're watching, and it also gives me inspiration to see what I want to watch as well. I would say one of my favourite things is to go through movie reviews, especially films I thought were bad, and see what other people think about them because the reviews are normally hilarious. Okay, and before we officially get into the video, I just want to say I'm going to be talking about these films in no particular order, so even though they are all my top 4, they are interchangeably 1, 2, 3 and 4, if that makes sense. Also, there will most likely be spoilers into the plots of these films, so if you have not watched any of them, then I would suggest skipping ahead. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the film synopsis from Letterboxd, and then I'm gonna tell you, I don't know, my thoughts and feelings on it, I guess. Okay, so the first film I'm going to be talking about is About Time, which was released in 2013, directed by Richard Curtis. So the synopsis says, bear in mind this first part is in all caps, what if every moment in life came with a second chance? The night after another unsatisfactory New Year's party, Tim's father tells his son that men in his family have always had the ability to travel through time. They can't change history, but they can change what happens and has happened in their own lives. Thus begins the start of a lesson in learning to appreciate life itself as it is, as it comes, and most importantly, the people living alongside us. I can't remember when I first watched About Time. I think it was like, they were like showing it on Channel 4 or something. And I watched it, so it must have been a few years after it first came out, but I absolutely fell in love with it. I kind of went through a phase when I was maybe like 14, I guess, 14 or 15, no, 13 or 14, where my favourite films were like About Time and Me Before You and Love Rosie and like that sort of British rom-com sort of era, I guess, of like I would say the late 2000s and early 2010s. Okay, so the main cast we have in this film is Tim, which I read out in the synopsis, Tim Lake, who is played by Domhnall Gleeson. We also have Mary, his wife, I guess, in the film. I mean, they don't know each other and then they meet each other and then she becomes his wife, played by Rachel McAdams, who I love Rachel McAdams in, I know that everyone like thinks of Mean Girls when they think of her, but I really love her in like her, I don't know, more, I don't know, like calmer, like rom-com sort of things, I guess. And then we have Tim's dad, who is literally just called Dad in the cast list, played by Bill Nighy. Incredible casting. I think having Bill Nighy and Domhnall Gleeson as father and son was just, like, it was so good. It's so well casted. So yeah, as was said in the synopsis, one night after a failed New Year's Eve party, Tim's dad tells him that the men in his family have the ability to travel through time, but only change things within their lifetimes. And this sets Tim off on a weird and wild adventure. He moves from his family home to London and he meets Mary. And yeah, you essentially follow him through his life and more specifically, I guess, his relationship with Mary. And yeah, just kind of what that entails, especially considering his ability to travel through time. It's just really heartfelt and warm and enjoyable to watch. So if you haven't watched it, I would highly suggest that you do. So in the UK at the moment, in terms of streaming services, you can only buy or rent it on Amazon Prime, but I'm sure there is plenty of other ways to find out how to watch it. Okay, so moving on to the next film. The next film in my Letterboxd top 4 is Coraline, which was released in 2009 and directed by Henry Selick. Again, in all caps, be careful what you wish for. Wandering her rambling old house in her boring new town, 11-year-old Coraline discovers a hidden door to a strangely idealised version of her life. In order to stay in the fantasy, she must make a frighteningly real sacrifice. To be honest, I'm assuming that most people have either watched or read or heard about Coraline. I mean, it was, I believe, Leica Studios' first feature-length film, and I love Leica Studios. I'm absolutely obsessed. And yeah, they just created something, I guess at the time was very unique, very interesting. You know, stop motion animation, especially in the UK, was mostly dominated by Wallace and Gromit and Aardman animations, which I also love. I do just kind of love stop motion animation, like claymation, that sort of stuff. Essentially, Coraline and her family moved to Pink Palace Apartments. It's not an actual Pink Palace, I'll insert a picture of it here. Yeah, they move into the Pink Palace Apartments, and while Coraline is, you know, discovering her new whereabouts and her new home, she finds this door. And she gets her mum to open the door, and the door leads to nowhere. And then in the middle of the night, she goes back and she realises, oh, the door actually leads to somewhere. That somewhere is an alternate universe where there is the other mother and the other father, and there is essentially an other version of everybody in her life currently. So that includes her neighbours that also live in the Pink Palace Apartments, Wybie, who lives with his grandma a bit further away from the Pink Palace Apartments, who is actually crucial to the story, which you don't realise until later on. This other version of her life is absolutely perfect, but the sacrifice Coraline has to make to stay is to sew buttons into her eyes, which is quite jarring for a kids' film, but I don't know, there's just something about it that's just so perfect. It's dark in the story, but it's very light in the way that it's told, and if you watch like deleted scenes, you could see that it was supposed to be more comedic than it actually is, which is really interesting. Yeah, I just can't even like describe it. I always watch it like on a rainy day. It's a proper comfort film. So our cast, obviously, like I said, this is stop motion animation, so all of these are voice actors, but Coraline Jones is voiced by the Dakota Fanning. And then we have Mel Jones, also the voice of the other mother, voiced by Terry Hatcher. I think the duality of being Mel, as in like Coraline's real mother, and the other mother, just shows how incredible of a voice actor Terry Hatcher is. I mean, you have to watch it to experience it yourself, but even just like tone and intonation changes before we really see what the true form of the other mother is. It makes the story what it is, really, in my opinion. Yeah, you can really tell how much they care about the characters and how much thought and effort they put into the backstories of these characters. So yeah, definitely watch it if you can. In the UK, you can buy or rent this film on Amazon Prime. You can also buy it on Apple TV. I believe you can also buy it on ITVX, but I'm not 100% sure about that, so maybe just have a look. Okay, the third film I'm going to be talking about is Imagine Me and You, released in 2005 and directed by Ol Parker. So the synopsis is as follows, again in all caps. There goes the bride. During her wedding ceremony, Rachel notices Luce in the audience and feels instantly drawn to her. The two women become close friends, and when Rachel learns that Luce is a lesbian, she realises that despite her happy marriage to Heck, she's falling for Luce. As she questions her sexual orientation, Rachel must decide between her stable relationship with Heck and her exhilarating new romance with Luce. Luce is played by Lena Headey, and our other protagonist, Rachel, is played, I can never pronounce her last name and I'm terribly sorry about this, is played by Piper Perabo. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce her last name. This is incredible, especially considering, so this is a BBC film produced in 2005, filmed in 2004. I'm just like astounded at how well presented this queer relationship is. Obviously, you know, it's very nuanced in the fact that the film does focus more so on love at first sight. That is the whole point of the film, is love at first sight real, and does it really change how you can feel about someone else? So as it says in the synopsis, Rachel is at her wedding, Luce is there. Luce is the florist for the wedding, and is invited to sit in the pews for some reason. I don't really get that, but she's invited to sit in the pews of the wedding ceremony, and then as she's leaving, locks eyes with Rachel, and it is a perfect scene of just like they see each other. Rachel has a moment and then carries on down the aisle, and they continue their friendship. Luce attends family gatherings and events, and they go out on bonfire night together. So I think the most important montage, because there's a few montages throughout this film, but I think the most important one up until the like pivotal like first kiss is they're out for Luce's birthday, which Rachel doesn't realise. Rachel has invited Luce to go watch the football with her because Heck, her husband, can't come. Heck, also amazing casting. Heck is played by Matthew Good. Again, brilliant. I will say that Rachel's mother and father, her mother is played by Celia Imrie and her father is played by Anthony Stewart Head. And again, brilliant casting. Especially for like that early 2000s BBC film sort of vibe. It is just absolutely amazing. But yeah, so they're out to watch the football and then they go to an arcade and there's this whole dance montage and they end up walking back and Luce reveals that it's her birthday and they almost kiss. Like I said, it's great representation for the early 2000s. I think it's also really important that we're still showing and sharing queer stories, especially, unfortunately, since the BBC has cancelled I Kissed a Girl and I Kissed a Boy, which I think is a huge blow, because they had such a great and impactful audience because of this. So it's great to keep these other BBC films alive, I guess, that represent these queer storylines. Again, in terms of this film, you can buy it on Amazon Prime, but I believe that is the only streaming service in the UK where you can watch it. It's not actually on the BBC, like on BBC iPlayer, which I think is really weird. Okay, and finally, rounding up my Letterboxd top 4 is Save the Last Dance, which was released in 2001, directed by Thomas Carter. The only person you need to be is yourself. After the death of her mother, Sarah moves to the south side of Chicago to live with her father and gets transferred to a majority black school. Her life takes a turn for the better when befriends Chanel and her brother Derek, who help her with her dancing skills. I feel like that doesn't read right. As it says, Sarah, who is played by Julia Stiles, again, she was in her era, like very late 90s, early 2000s with the rom-coms. Yeah, so Sarah's mum unfortunately passes away and she moves to live with her dad, who is kind of estranged to her, in the south side of Chicago. This also means that she moves to a majority black school and, you know, she's trying to fit in, she's kind of seen differently. And the thing that I like about it is it's not that she's just outcasted because she's white and it's a majority black school. They really talk about racial themes throughout the film. And there's one scene, just skipping ahead, there's one scene where Sarah and Chanel go to the emergency room, so A&E, because Chanel's son is feeling sick, and they see all of these other mothers there whose children aren't being treated, and they have a conversation about how black people are treated in healthcare, how black people are treated in society, and how Sarah will never truly understand this from a first-hand perspective because of her white privilege. Going back to, let's talk about the film a bit more. So yeah, Sarah joins this school, she meets Chanel and Derek. Derek realises that Sarah used to be a dancer, so she used to dance ballet, but since her mother passed away, she kind of gave up her dreams of attending Juilliard and yeah, stopped dancing, but Derek wants her to achieve her dreams, and so he teaches her hip-hop and other more predominantly black styles of dance to incorporate into her Juilliard audition, and they begin a relationship, which a lot of people in the school frown upon, essentially purely because it is, you know, a mixed race relationship. I think the main point to be taken away from this isn't because they don't... It's hard to describe because they don't dislike Sarah because she's white, they dislike her because of the privilege that she naturally has. Again, because the film is more so focused on the romantic side of it, then I think sprinkling it in shows the watchers that they are aware of these themes and they don't want to disregard this. However, this is just kind of, you know, the story they're telling as well. I don't know. I think it's quite cringy in parts. Some of like the dancing and whatnot, it does kind of make you like recoil, especially like the scenes in the club. They are a bit funny to watch from an outsider's perspective, but I don't know, there's just something about it that I can just like watch and watch and watch. But let me tell you about the rest of the cast. So yeah, as I said, we have Sarah Johnson, who's played by Julia Stiles. We have Derek Reynolds, who is played by Sean Patrick Thomas, icon. Chanel Reynolds, who is played by Kerry Washington, which I don't think the first time I watched it I realised it was Kerry Washington, but now I'm like, this is actually really gaggy. We have the forever immortal Bianca Lawson in this film, and I don't know if you guys are aware of like the Bianca Lawson lore, but she's just kind of like in everything and like never ages. It's really crazy because she was in this as a teenager, and then she was in Pretty Little Liars years later as a teenager, and she was also like, I don't even know, like her filmography is crazy, but she's been playing a teenager for the past like 30 years, and I commend her for that. Pop off, queen. Okay, so that was my letterboxd top 4. I don't really know how well that came across. I was just kind of talking about everything I liked about the films, but yeah, those are my letterboxd top 4. Let me know in the comments what your letterboxd top 4 is or would be if you don't have Letterboxd, like what your top 4 favourite films are. But yeah, that was my Letterboxd top 4. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. Like I said, comment down below what your top 4 favourite films are, what your Letterboxd top 4 is. Please also leave comments of what sort of content you'd like to see from me. I'm kind of just doing anything at the moment, so that would be really great as well. If you do want to follow me on my other socials, linked in the description would be my Instagram, TikTok, and my Goodreads, so you can follow me on there. But yeah, that is it, guys. As I said, thank you again for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the